Hello and welcome back around the Bonfire. It's a pleasure to have you here on what was a dreary day in Chicago, but it's brightening up. We're talking a little ball. Smaller group today, but just as good as any. I'm joined as always by the man with the plan. Tim, how are we feeling on this Wednesday evening?
Well, the Fire are still planning on getting a new stadium, so that's the biggest news for the week. And it's sort of like, oh yeah, there's a game against DC United, who are a team in MLS. They are amongst the teams in Major League Soccer. No disrespect to them, or like they've got a ton of phenomenal history from early in league, but you're like, yeah, it's DC, and as we're going to talk about, they may not have Benteke, so like it's not like there's like a ton that is like thrilling about this game.
Yep, they are an MLS team of all time. That is for sure. They are one of the teams in MLS. But yeah, as Tim alluded to, Chicago Fire FC getting a brand new stadium in 2028. If you are living under a rock and haven't heard that yet, we did a really awesome episode of Quick Fire yesterday with David Goss of SoccerWise. So if you have the opportunity, go back and listen to that after you listen to this. If you haven't, or if you have, listen to it again. It's good for the algorithm. We would certainly appreciate it. But as Tim also
your friends to listen to it on your friend's phone or device is the thing to do.
When your friend goes to sleep later, look up Men in Red 97 on their phone and just play it while it'll be perfect.
You know your roommate's iPad code. Go into podcast, hit like and subscribe. It's that simple.
Yeah. Smash that like button. Demolish that subscribe button, actually. But anyway, as Tim mentioned, there is a game being played between Chicago Fire FC and DC United coming up this Saturday, June 7th in Washington, D.C. at what is, if I'm remembering correctly, Audi Field, right? It feels like such a random sponsorship, but nonetheless, happening this weekend.
It's one of the richest metro areas in the country, and they get a luxury car dealership. Frisco, Texas gets Toyota, which is somehow not like Ford F-150 field, which seems weird, but like I can kind of roll with it. You know, it's what happens in this league.
Yeah, it's the Toyota Tundra, Tim. But
you drive one of those to a bar in the middle of nowhere in Texas and see what kind of reaction you get.
Like I don't know a lot about trucks, but I know Toyota Tundras are not where it's at. Actually, the only thing worse than a Toyota Tundra is a Nissan Titan. But we'll move on. We'll talk a little ball, a little bit of news actually to start us off. Some exciting news from Chicago Fire here. First of all, Omari Glasgow being called up as expected to play with Guyana in the World Cup qualifiers. He'll play June 6th against Nicaragua, June 10th against Montserrat. If they win, the Golden Jaguars will advance to the final round of the CONCACAF World Cup qualifying for the first time in history. As we all know, our own star boy, Omari Glasgow, already leading all-time scorer for Guyana. So major shouts to Omari. If you are watching any World Cup qualifying action this weekend, I hope it is Guyana and you're rooting for him. Also being called up to international duty is Harold Osorio, the Chicago Fire 2 mainstay, called up by El Salvador, also for World Cup qualifying.
That's a weird transition considering the next guy you mentioned. It's like, yeah, root for Guyana. Oh yeah, but also the other team you should root for.
I have no disdain in my heart for El Salvador and Harold Osorio, but they are not, they're not, going for anything as historic as what Omari and Guyana are doing.
They've made a World Cup before, right?
Exactly.
It would be good if Harold Osorio helped them do it again. But the first time is always the best.
Exactly. So I'm just saying, if you've only got one set of good vibes, give it to them. And then if you have two sets, then you can give it to El Salvador or America. Tough to say. They join Christopher Cupps, Sergio Orahel, and Chris Brady, who are all going to be featuring for their national sides, both on the senior and youth level in the coming weeks as the FIFA June window opens. Chris Brady, just a little tidbit of news that came out today. Zach Steffen officially recalled from camp. He's heading back to Colorado dealing with an injury. So it does seem Chris Brady will be on the Gold Cup roster for the United States men's national team as ostensibly the third goalkeeper potentially hired, depending on how training goes, which would mean he could miss upwards of 3, 4, potentially up to 5 games. So not an ideal plan for the Fire, but exciting to see him getting opportunities with the senior team.
Yeah, and he's, one of those guys that's exceeded expectations at every level he's hit in his professional career. It's one of those things where, Mauricio Pochettino has said that he wants guys that are playing games, and he is, one of the goalkeepers in camp, like one of the two really that has been consistently playing games at this point. The other being Matt Freese. I mean, I this is not me trying to be biased in any way. I would have him higher than Matt Freese in my pecking order if I'm looking for a good shot stopper, and his distribution has improved a lot this year. And he's kind of like a soccer generation younger than Matt Freese, who's kind of like in what you call more the prime than like the early part of his career. So like higher upside on him. So like if I'm Pochettino, I'm keeping my eyes open. I am probably looking at Chris Brady and being like, where have you been the entire time that I've been this national team head coach? Oh, you're one of the guys who didn't call in until now. Well, I'll fix that mistake.
Yeah, like I don't know. I think I've been very critical of Mauricio Pochettino. I think there's a real chance that this window ends up being something where he just kind of has his hand played right. I expect to see a lot of Diego Luna because of some of the guys who are missing. And frankly, I expect to see Chris Brady start in one of those friendlies, just if nothing else to cap tie him, right? After some of the talks that were going on with Scotland. I would expect to see him start. And as I'm saying, I don't even know that the friendly would. Please correct me if I have my rules wrong, Tim.
They change rules so often now. I believe that 2 would. He's still young enough where if he didn't get called up for a little while after that, he could still
Have a
do a
one-time
one-time switch.
So
Yeah.
either way,
but like you don't want to like. I don't know what it's like under Pochettino. Greg Berhalter always made a point of never wanting to cap tie a guy that didn't want to be cap tied, and I would just assume that even if Pochettino doesn't really care that much, he also I don't think is like planning for the long-term future of this program. I think he's kind of, the phrase mercenary has been used a lot. He's here for the time that he's here, and I don't think that he cares about the long-term success of the U.S. men's national team in the way that like Greg Berhalter did necessarily. Sure. And so that being the case, like why would you cap tie a guy that you're not planning on taking to a World Cup when there's other options, right? Like,
well, and that's the other question, right? Because if Matt Turner continues to not play, it's Zach Steffen is only getting older. Patrick Schulte has a lot of question marks. Drake Callender, who had kind of been in and out, is not even, I think, the main keeper in Miami at this point. There's a very real chance where Chris Brady is first choice.
Well, if U.S. goalkeepers keep him getting injured like Drake Callender's been, then yeah, like it becomes a huge issue, right? Of like suddenly we have guys that are not staying healthy. We'll see. Like, hopefully it all works out for Chris Brady and the national team in whatever way that can.
Yeah, I think the main point I was kind of getting to there was I think ultimately Chris Brady starts in one, if not both friendlies, and I think there's a real chance we see him play in the Gold Cup, which would be extremely exciting for him, and obviously just as a fan of the guy as well. The last bit of news that we have before we'll kind of start talking a little bit of DC preview. Alex Calabrese reported today Claudio Cassano likely to be moving on after joining Fire 2 this winter. Seems to be a bit frustrated with the lack of first team minutes, though there do seem to be some contract issues that are preventing him from doing that. I also think there's a point to be made of there's not exactly a lot of room for you to get in the lineup here, man. Even if you're featuring on the bench, you're probably not getting in the game, to be candid, with the way the roster looks right now. So there have been talks seemingly with Lugano in Switzerland to potentially either a short-term loan or something longer-term. It'd be interesting to see kind of how that develops over the next month or two and what that looks like in the long term for the kid's career. Tim, I'll kind of toss you if you have any thoughts on his game. I feel like everything I've seen of him at Fire 2 has been good. It's just a question of how worth it is the move.
Yeah, and it's kind of a tough situation, right? Like Greg Berhalter talked about what the vision is for the Fire 2, at least as long as he's in charge of, the Fire 2 and like the sort of like director of football. And it's not so much to win games, it's to develop players, and it's to develop players that are local academy products is the first and foremost. And the second is as a place to help develop talent that you think isn't first team ready, but could be like a real kind of like, not necessarily global talent in the sense of like, you're going to be like highlight reeling World Cup, like World Cup games, but in the sense of like, you're a unique player that we think could make a real difference in this league, is sort of like the way that he put it. And I think that Cassano was in that, but they also thought he was not really ready for a first team contract, just with where he was at in his development. He has been paid pretty well, is my understanding. And that is why, according to Alex, and I can also confirm this from what I've heard, that is why he was not eligible for a first team call up. There's a hard cap, which is the senior minimum salary on what you can make, and he was above it. So That's kind of a tough situation to be in where, as a young player, you want to get whatever unit of currency is available to you, dollar, euro, whatever else. But at the same time, that limits what he could do here. And I think that, you know, it's tough, and it's tough adjusting to a new country. Lugano is, right next to Italy. It's like right there, Italian speaking and all that. So it'd be a good fit for him. And it's been a good sort of like Georgios Kousias, like his family he's very close to his father. He's very close to his family. It was a good option for him. That's why he was loaned back there. And I don't think he's going to be returning just because he didn't really want to live this far away from home. And that's understandable. He came, he tried, didn't work out for him. That's not exactly what's happening with Cassano, by my understanding, but at the same time, I think that they look at the options in Europe and they think there's a lot more things that they like around there as a camp. So, it's what it is.
Yeah, every time somebody mentions Georgios Koutsias to me now, I think of the time I was just walking through downtown and I see him pass me on a Lime scooter. And my first thought was like, that's a little dangerous for somebody who's being paid a lot of money to play a sport. And my second thought was like, why does he look sad? You can't look sad on a Lime scooter. You should be excited about all of the things around you. But hey, that's life, I guess.
You can a little bit because in MLS that breaks the terms of the CBA, and the Fire could have gotten out of the contract that way if they'd wanted to. So,
yikes. Okay, well, hey, that might get us out of a sticky situation later. I didn't take a picture though, so I actually didn't say that. Your secret is safe with me, brother. Anyway, we're going to move on to actual things that are happening in the world of Chicago Fire football now. As mentioned before, Chicago Fire head out to Washington, D.C. to play D.C. United this weekend, missing several notable players. As of now, it does look like Christian Benteke will miss out with an injury, which is great news for the back line and starman Jeff Gall, who will be getting the starting goal on Saturday. We'll talk about him in a little bit. They will also be missing Aaron Herrera, Matty Peltola, and Kyle Rouse among their mainstays, as well as a few other guys who have been called up to international duty. And we're going to start actually talking a little bit about that international duty kind of mix up as well. Just a few other guys who are going to miss out. We've got a little bit of guys on the back of the milk carton, as it were. We got obviously Chris Brady, Sergio Orhel, Christopher Cups, Omari Glasgow, all being up to national team duty. Mauricio Pineda missing out with a suspension for yellow card accumulation. And still no update on Sam Rogers in terms of his injury. We do expect to hear more from Greg tomorrow at the press conference. And obviously, as the availability report comes out, we will hear more. Tim, kind of twofold. One, if you have any reporting you can share about Sam Rogers, I would love to hear it because you haven't shared it with me yet. But two, who do you see as the key man who needs to step up in this game to make sure that the Fire accomplish what they should be?
I can exclusively report. No, I haven't been to training. Alex has been going to training frequently. So has Joe Chats. I've been relying on them, to do that. I just haven't had as much time as I'd like to be out there. My suspicion would be that if Sam Rogers is even like, we think you can probably go like questionable, probably pushes him into the available category, and available probably means that he starts and plays minutes. And if he has to get pulled at some point, for Omar, like that's what happens. Omar Gonzalez becomes the backup option that comes in and plays minutes. I think that the team is more comfortable with him not planning on going 90, although he did do it 10 or 11 times last year.
Two little pieces of note. I just went back and checked the record. Shout out to our friend Joe Chats. Sam Rogers was in training, was participating as of yesterday, and Jean-Alpha Diouf was also working with the first team as well. A guy who we've seen have a first team call-up before, if I'm remembering correctly.
This may be his first. This isn't a call-up, right? Like no one, like historically, there have been days that just like there aren't enough reporters in Chicago, and Joe is busy, and so there are days that there's no one at training, and then we don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean game day, not practice. I know he's practiced with them. Yeah.
Yeah, if he does get a call up, it would be his first, I believe. And I mean, good for him. Like, he's an exciting young player, I think. I've liked what I've seen from him at Fire too. Obviously, MLS is a different level. I would say in some ways Benteke-less DC. It's almost like the more fun would be a DC-less Benteke. Like, if you had to watch one, like the more fun thing would just be like, just see Benteke for 2 hours on his couch and whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
but like that, like that's kind of an ideal situation. And if you want to give a guy a try, like a run out in an actual first team game, and you don't mind using one of the limited number of call ups and windows that you have to do so for an ex pro guy, this is like an ideal situation to do it, where it's a team that has one big weapon and the weapon is not there.
Yeah, 100%. And you have to think about, and Tim, do me a favor. Can you just refresh myself and the audience on the length of time that call up is eligible for?
Yeah, so it's you get 4 call-ups. You can only appear in 2 league matches. That the window of the call-up is short enough where like maybe you can appear in like an Open Cup match or a Leagues Cup match or something like that, and a league match, but that's kind of it. So really, it's the 2 MLS matches that has typically been the limiting factor for the Fire in most teams. So this would be one of 2 that he gets for the year, right? Which is running a risk. I would suspect that there will not be many times that the Fire have fewer available center back options than they will in this game, because just, between like long-term injuries, short-term injuries, and everything else. So it would not be crazy to see him use like one of the 4 call-ups, because like at this point you've got, whatever, like 19 matches, 18 after this one. Like there's only so much runway you've got to worry about. And then the other side of it is, you're hoping at some point Tehran gets healthy. Maybe the team reinforces the center back a little bit more. Maury is an option back there. He will not be suspended on yellow card accumulation, hopefully again this season. Although, less than halfway through, it happens once. It's easier to happen twice than it is once. So but overall, I think that the team, hopefully, knock on wood, and I'm literally knocking on wood because we've seen what happened to Cincinnati. This will be the time that the center back pool is shallowest for the Fire.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an interesting. I candidly, I think what you said before was perfect, right? This idea of this is maybe the perfect time to try him out, and I think the beauty of it is as Barroso is still working back to full fitness, you have him start between Jack Elliott and Jonathan Dean, and not to equate the two, because I think Jack Elliott is one of the better center backs in MLS, like a real true proven veteran, and Jonathan Dean is this guy who is kind of that fringe backup starter level MLS right back, at least defensively. But you have 2 guys who are very competent in the system and understand their roles and can really kind of help him. And I think that's kind of showed with what they've been able to do with Christopher Cupps. And I want to give Christopher Cupps all the credit in the world, but I think pairing between 2 guys who understand the system and have been playing in the league for a little bit definitely helps. So I'm curious to see, right? Guy's 22 years old. How much longer can you reasonably expect him to stay down with the second team? In a perfect world, there was some reporting today that there's potentially some interest from Newell's Old Boys for Carlos Tehran. So if there is an offer for Carlos Tehran this summer, do you take that? And then do you have a center back target ready to go? You would think they may, but potentially they also feel that Diouf can be that guy, right? If you can sign him to a first team deal, and he could potentially feature as the 3rd or 4th center back, or I should say the 2nd or 3rd center back off the bench, right?
Newell's Old Boys sounds like a crazy connection, but he got pretty up close and personal to Lionel Messi in that game, and they were chatting for a while afterwards. So maybe one.
Not a lot of guys out there who have kind of single-handedly shut down Lionel Messi. And not that it was single-handedly entirely, but that was maybe the best game I've ever seen Carlos Tehran play.
Mostly the feet, but yeah, no, it was an awesome game from him. Yeah, it was an awesome game from him. They were chatting for a while afterwards. I don't know if that did it, but like at the same time, like it seems like Lionel Messi is never really that far away from Newell's Old Boys. So you never know.
What a small world that would be. I think kind of thinking larger picture though of the guys who are going to play, I would say from my perspective, right, thinking kind of that who steps up question that we asked before. I'm really curious to see who starts at right back, right? If it is Leonardo Barroso, I think there's a very real chance that he is like the key to this game, right? Just in terms of what he can provide explosively, just because we are going to be down in the midfield. And that is what brings me to kind of like my second guy, who's the actual pick, which is Brian Gutierrez, right? Last time we saw him, he was pulling yet another dumb stunt, getting himself kicked out of a game and then suspended for another game against a top team in the East. And this is an opportunity for him to put the weight of this midfield on his shoulders, missing his 2 midfield partners who have at times this season maybe helped him be the guy we all think he should be, right? Who have put him in a really nice position. And now is the time for him to lift up presumably Romani Kwame and Kellen Acosta, maybe Jay Davia, who, side note, I could also see potentially playing some minutes at center back just because of his build, but I don't love that idea. Yeah, I think Brian
His
Gutierrez is
build
going to
and
be
the issues that
under.
we've seen from him, right? Like the issues we've seen from develop have been like more about like match awareness of all the things that's going around them, a little bit of speed and positioning kind of questions, right? And that's stuff that like sometimes we've seen this more with players going from an attacking midfield position down to the wing, down to like a like wing back role, where it's like you simplify the game, you make it more about like this is your area, and with wing back it's more like up and down, and with center back it's like you worry about what's in front of you and don't let guys get in behind you, and that's the job. And so I can see him doing well there between that and his physical talents.
Yeah. But main point, right, being I think Brian Gutierrez is the guy who needs to step up in this game because all of that creativity in midfield is going to rest on his shoulders. He's not going to have Sergio Orahel next to him to kind of help break out play. Hopefully, like I said, we see Romani Kwame and Kellen Acosta. I'm curious to what that lineup would look like, but I think a lot of that is going to fall on Brian's shoulders.
Yeah. And I will say that at times when the team has not created through the midfield, one thing that they've done pretty well is they start playing out of the back. They get a switch from, say, the right back or even a center back sometimes, into a wide area on the other side of the pitch. And then where they feel like they've got a numerical advantage, they carry the ball forward. And you've got guys like Zinkernagel dropping back and picking up that ball. So you're kind of at that point bypassing the midfield. And that's how the team has been able to produce sometimes when like Gutierrez hasn't been in the lineup. So that it doesn't make Gutierrez really a luxury player, but it means that the team is not relying on midfield production to create offense the way that they were before. And that's going to be an option. I think it's a stronger attack if it's Leo Barroso that is the one doing that. Although, as you pointed out several times and in several ways in writing and on the pod, that's something we've seen more from Dean lately. So that's welcome to see. But it'll be interesting to see which of those things it is. I frankly would love to see a comeback game from Brian Gutierrez. And I'm sorry to the team around him that he did let down, because I think that game was very winnable for the Fire against NYCFC until he left and sent the team down a man. And where he just plays a game where he's completely indispensable to everything going on in the attack. And he is like the nexus of it and generating things and scoring goals and getting assists and all that.
Yeah, 100%. I think I've been very critical of Brian in a lot of ways for his play, for his attitude, for his work ethic. I think he is one of the few guys out there who I see a ceiling of take over a game, right? And in more than one way, right? Can he score from outside the box? Yeah. Can he score from inside the box? Yes. Can he make the final pass? Yes. Can he be the guy that breaks out play from the midfield to Zinkernagel or Bamba or even to Kuipers with a well-placed ball? Like, he can do all those things.
Man, if you just made that rhyme a little bit more, it would have been a Dr. Seuss book and it would have been beautiful. But hey.
No, it is just like, I want to see him put it all together, right? And I hope this is kind of that first opportunity for him to do so, because I don't want to make this whole point about Brian Gutierrez. We'll move on after this, but there is an aspect of like, when are you going to be set up better than right now in terms of who you're paired with? You look at the three guys ahead of him. Like that, man, like that is you. I know you haven't been given a lot since you've been called up, right? Since you've been with the first team. This is pretty dang good, buddy. Like it's time to start being the guy we expect you to be. And we've seen that. We have seen that. It's now just time to stop doing the stupid stuff too, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that's a good point. I think somebody else, he's just been so good. I feel like we've talked about him, but not enough. Like, Hugo Kuipers is leading the league in non-penalty expected goals. And we're at the midway point in the season. So like, this is just like, not like on a per 90 basis. I'm saying overall. So even though Kuipers has 2 games in hand on most of the field, he's leading it over guys that have those 2 games and have played half the season, right? And like, so that's an ideal, like, if you're a creative midfielder, one of the other wingers, right? Like Bamba or Zinkernagel, like those are like, this is kind of an ideal situation for you. And we've seen a lot of production. Zinkernagel's been great and I think exceeded a lot of people's expectations. Bamba we talked about recently, but he's been doing the things that you don't see as much. And I think we want to see him do the things that do make it on highlight reels a little bit more. And DC, like they have Benteke, and you don't want to take anything away from what they're doing, but they were a team that looked like they were going to be at the bottom of the table and have done nothing to change anyone's mind since, other than a bicycle kick goal. Other than that one bicycle kick goal.
Yeah, and that's as good a place as any to kind of move to our next thought here, which is it's I wrote this out, and I don't normally say what I wrote in the outline verbatim, but I thought this was good, so I'm gonna say it. It's time to bike the trend, right? Instead of buck, get it? But no, we've seen Chicago Fire kind of not live up to expectations against some of these spoon level teams in MLS, right? A draw against DC United on a last minute bicycle kick, a poorly played draw against Montreal, both games at home. And it does feel like you're entering this game, you're going to DC, who do have a win in their most recent matchup, but prior to that, or including that, excuse me, that's their only win in their last 7 games in all competitions, whereas the Fire have won 5 of 6 in all competitions. So it's, what I guess.
And it was against just to put it in context, it was against a very weakened FC Cincinnati side that has looked a lot more vulnerable and somehow seem like they always have like 4 awesome center backs and are missing 6 awesome center backs due to injury or something else.
Exactly. And so I guess the question here, Tim, it's kind of a 2-parter, is what needs to be done to actually kind of, buck the trend, change the narrative, and then what happens if they don't?
I think the Fire allowed 25 shots against Orlando, and that's just an insane number. You can't keep on doing that in a game and expect to win them. Like Chris Brady was key against Charlotte, or Chris Brady was key last week. Like you can't keep on against Orlando. I don't know why I keep on thinking Charlotte and Orlando. Teams that are, I guess, farther south than Chicago are all the same to me. But it's, I think that they need to cut down the number of shots to make Gall's life a lot easier than they made Brady's last week. And then just everyone else needs to stick to the system and do the things that they should be doing. I know there's absences in the midfield. The team has played with a rotating cast in the midfield for a significant portion of the year at this point, and we've seen guys step it up. And I think that the pieces you've got have offensive upside and are defensively solid, so that's good considering the center back issue. And it would be great to see Bamba wake up and start finding the back of the net more consistently, or even just doing the things we've seen Zinkernagel do of like being the guy that passes into the box and, sets up the like beautiful looking goal for, Kuipers or whoever, right? That would be phenomenal to see. And if that just happens, like those things like that we've seen in individual moments, it just is like a 90-minute complete performance thing from the pieces that we have, knowing that it's not the same level that it would be if the pieces that are not available were in the lineup.
It's, to your point, right? It's a lot about doing the things you know how to do, right? It's a lot about kind of doing a lot of the small things. And I think my big thought here, right, was just like, what needs to happen is you need to play your system, right? You need to kind of keep control of the ball, because the more you have the ball, the less they are attacking. To your point, the less shots they can get on Jeff Gall, who I think I may be a little higher on than most, but still you want to not be testing him every 2 minutes, right?
He's going to be nervous, right? Like that's the thing. It's not about his ability level. It's about, this is going to be a tough situation for him. He knows now that he has potentially the most starts that he's had in anything close to, like, MLS Next Pro is just different, I think, for a guy like Jeff Gall, because he did get time there last year, but he was, again, like he's not like a kid starting out, right? And so I think that felt different, and you just want to make life simple, especially in this first game. The same way that the Fire did before, right? When he was thrust into a difficult situation in the middle of a match.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And so I think that it's going to come down to controlling the ball, right? It's going to be, this is a game where, candidly, like obviously you want to kind of let your offense run the show, right? And if you go in and Phil and Joe can kind of run the show and get you a couple goals, right? Score 4 or 5 goals. It's going to just make life easier, because then Jeff Gall isn't going to be asked to be perfect. He's going to be asked to be good enough, right? And so there is an aspect of, you want to see your offense really thrive. You want to see them be aggressive. But the other part of that is, maybe, guys, we need to be better in hold-up play. Maybe we not need to turn the ball. Maybe we just need to not turn the ball over in poorly planned one-on-ones that are going to end somewhere deep in the box that are not really going to put anybody in a position to score and could lead to a pretty quick counterattack for DC United, right? Especially if we don't have our even fourth choice center back, right? Because there's arguably four guys ahead of Omar Gonzalez or Jean Alpha Diouf, who we just talked about, that will be out, right? Or that would be picked before them, I should say. So I think it's all about keeping it simple. And then what happens if they don't? Honestly, it's a little bit of a death knell. And I don't mean to be defeatist here or alarmist, but the Fire currently sit 3 points below the playoff line, below New York City, who they lost to, and they're currently even below New England, who's a spot ahead of them. And you're almost about that halfway point of the season. And if you've gotten 1 point off DC, it's like, man, it's not a good place to be. I say that much.
Oh, yeah. It's hard to say that, right? Like, it's weird to say that with 19 games left to play. Like, this isn't like do or die, but when you look at the Fire's schedule coming up, it's not getting easier, right? Like, it's difficult games that Jeff Gall is likely to be the Fire starting goalkeeper for. And again, back to like his comfort level and everything else, like the psychology of it, I think is a factor. And you don't want to make it we're in a hole and we are now deeper in the hole and we've got to get out of it. You want to say, okay, we got the result we needed and now we just need to continue along that path. And that is a much better place to be. And it's simply like, it just isn't going to get easier than this, especially if, Benteke is out as we think he likely is, right? Like Nashville next week, like that we all know what happened the last time the Fire played Nashville. That's going to be on everyone's mind. And like a coach can say, like, think like a goldfish all they want. Like the human brain is not a goldfish brain, right? Like unless there is some top secret, like, neuroscience procedure or like sci-fi level, there's an Apple TV show about this, like severing someone's brain and memories for things that they can do before the team takes to the pitch in Nashville. It's going to be on everyone's mind. And Jeff Gall is going to think, I need to do better. And that was really hard with what Chris Brady faced. And so that's going to be the challenge. So getting the result now and just the psychology of like getting that, and then you're facing Philly at home. They have been a really tough team to beat. They have the Golden Boot leader right now. Like, just you want to get off on the right foot with his homestand.
Yeah. Did you just float out severancing Jeff Gall? Is that what I heard? Right?
Jeff Gall is the person that I'd least want a severance because he wasn't playing in that match. It's the rest of the squad that you'd want a severance.
Gotcha. Fair play. Yeah, as you alluded to, it goes DC, Nashville, Philadelphia, and then Charlotte, Cincinnati, Minnesota in the Open Cup, and then San Diego, and then Atlanta. So you do get a little bit of a break, right, where you go Atlanta, Montreal, but that's not for another 6 weeks. So this is going to be quite a haul for the boys here.
Yeah, and if the USMNT do advance, by the way, it is the games from DC up through Cincinnati on July 5th. So 3 home games, 2 away games that Jeff Gall would be the starting goalkeeper for.
Yeah. And hey, shout out my boy Jeff Gall. Like we said before, give Omari some good, karma. Maybe give some Jeff Gall too. He's a good dude. At least seems like it. We'll hope there. Last thing we'll talk about here, right? And we've already kind of talked about it a good bit. Again, I'm sorry. I'm just great with the puns tonight. Are you going to be my Gall? Pretty good, right, Tim?
So I'd like to point out that John is soon getting married and he is making a bunch of dad jokes. So I'm not saying that there are certain things, like there's only so much that birth control can possibly do for you, John, but I'm just saying, like, you get to a level and it just sort of like, there's only so much that birth control can possibly do physiologically.
Yeah, let's not put that bad, say, not bad juju, right? But not bad juju. But the idea here being, no, the idea being, can Jeff Gall carry the Fire through this particularly rough stretch? And I think you said it pretty well there, Tim, of like, it is kind of not going to be up to Jeff Gall in a certain sense, right? It is ultimately, he has to play to a certain level, but a lot more of it is going to come down to how the team around him plays, how Greg manages the tactics, and frankly, how we're able to manage games and kind of control game state to not put him in situations where he needs to make 25 saves in a game or 22 saves in a game or whatever it is, and can just kind of play a comfortable game, distribute the ball, and not be tested more than, the average keeper, I'll say.
I am just going to say, in Gall We Trust was right there, and you didn't take that. So
yeah, I was thinking like dun, 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 that one.
No. I had this song in my head. Like that's why in the pre-roll I was actually humming that like right when you were coming in, because you put that in my head and it will not come out for like 2 weeks now. But I just saying like you had other options.
Yeah, I mean we always have other options. I was going to make a joke, but I won't.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that John is not yet married, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Wonderful. Well, I think that's a good place to kind of wrap up most of our actual ball talk here. So that brings us to the one final and maybe most important question. Timothy, who you got?
Using my full name, man. I feel like I'm in trouble now. I'm going to say Fire 3-1. I think the offense does it. I would love it if Gall got a clean sheet. I think, like, again, it just becomes like a pressure thing. And the Fire don't have to be perfect the other way. You got to get more goals in. And we saw how well that worked last week. And I think that's a good formula for this one, with like a little bit tighter, more relying on the system to help you out and not allowing 25 shots. It'd be great.
Yeah. I think I've had kind of similar thought. I'm going Fire 4-2. I just don't, frankly, this is a game you win. I think you look at the holes that the Fire have right now. It's a few second choice guys. It's a few first choice guys. You're getting Brian Gutierrez back. Do I feel good about the game where my worst starting midfielder is Kellen Acosta? Yeah, I feel good. Like that is a perfectly competent team in my eyes. Stripped of value, of course, but like I feel really confident there. I think, DC is going to have the chance to score some goals. I wouldn't be shocked if Sam Rogers doesn't play. Obviously, we'll find out more tomorrow. We'll see how active he's going to be. But if you told me we saw...
Or if he does play, it's a minute restriction sort of thing, right?
Exactly.
Like there's different versions of that. And I think expecting him to have the game of his life is not a realistic expectation, just given the injury that he's facing.
Yeah. And that's to the point of like, I wouldn't even be shocked if we saw 30 plus minutes of Omar Gonzalez or Jean-Alpha Diouf, or maybe even more of that, right? Because part of me also... I don't know. Sometimes I think Greg and I are on the same wavelength. And I think he may also see this game of like, we don't need to rush Sam Rogers back to win this game. Like, we should be able to win this game by scoring 5 goals to their 3 if we really, really need to. Yeah. And I think that's ultimately what this game is going to look like.
The defensive structure has been better, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's something that we've seen from the team.
100%. Perfect. I think that is as good a place as any to kind of wrap up our talk here. Although I will say personally, I have 4 goals on the board. Let's say Hugo Kuipers, Leonardo Barroso, Andrew Gutman. I think both fullbacks get on the action. Tim, you want to toss yours on?
Man, you keep on denying Hugo Kuipers the hat trick, but I'm going to as well. So no hard feelings. Yeah, I'm going to say Hugo Kuipers, Jonathan Bamba, Philip Zinkernagel, and Brian Gutierrez, if I had to add a 4th, although I predicted 3.
Yeah, I was going to say, you said 3, so don't worry about it.
I said 3. I mean, it would be great if Guti got one as well. I don't think that this is really the game where that's really the role he's going to be asked to play. I think that it would be better if he was helping others and setting that up in this one.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, I don't want Brian Gutierrez to score in this game. I want him to have 3 assists. That's what I'd like to see from Brian Gutierrez. Honestly, this might sound counterintuitive, even better if they're MLS assists. And if you don't know what MLS assists are, it's making the pass to the pass, because it would bode well for his future, I think. But Tim, anything else you want to add before we wrap up here, buddy?
No, this has been a lot longer than I thought we were going to be talking about DC United. In the pre-roll, we're like, this is going to be short. There's not a lot to say about DC, and we found stuff to talk about. So
we say that every time.
Either you're welcome or we're sorry. Yeah.
Every time we get on, Tim goes, this isn't going to be that long. And then it's always that long. But that said, thank you so much for joining us here. It's a pleasure to have you. It's a pleasure to be able to do this show week in, week out. Looking forward to having another wonderful match day here on Saturday, and hopefully talking over another win with y'all when we meet together on Sunday, and you can listen on Monday. As always, give us a follow wherever you're listening to this. Subscribe, smash that like button. pulverize the subscribe button. Rate 5 stars like your life depends on it. I'm
talking over you right now, so I'm denying you the ability to use this as an addition tape for Barstool.
I'm gonna start every episode now. Go, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. No,
anyway. Oh darn it! I didn't block you from the addition audio. Oh,
yeah, there we go. No, but it really is a pleasure to be able to do the show. Thank you so much for listening, for supporting, for communicating with us via social medias. And by the way, you can follow us everywhere, Men in Red 97. You can also find us MIR97 Pods on Twitter. And again, if you weren't around yesterday or you haven't given a listen yet, would really, really recommend listening to the special edition of Bonfire or Quickfire, that we did yesterday with David Goss of SoccerWise. We talked all things about the new Chicago Fire Stadium that was announced that's being opened in 2028. Would really recommend. Massive shout out to David for joining on that. It was awesome to have him. Awesome to talk about the stadium project with him, and we're excited for the future there. But yeah, from there, like I said, follow, like, subscribe. Let us know what you think. Tell us if our takes are good or bad. And above all else, thank you so much for joining us around the bonfire. We'll see you next time, and come on, you Men in Red.